She slammed the door on Seattle's Rain and his offer, her heart still echoing with his words, "If I hire you, will you marry me?" The city blurred, and so did everything she thought she knew about love. Rain fell over Seattle like a punishment. The kind of endless drizzle that seeps through your jacket, your hair, your hope. Emily Carter stood on the sidewalk, a cardboard box in her arms, the last pieces of her career at Bright & Company. Design. A mug with chipped paint. A notebook half filled with dreams. And a photo of her and her co-workers smiling, back when she thought they were friends. She had just been fired. Not for poor performance, but for speaking up, calling out her boss for stealing her design pitch. Not a team player, they'd said. Unprofessional. Now, as people rushed past her with umbrellas and purpose, Emily just stood still, the rain washing streaks of mascara down her cheeks. Inside her phone's reflection, she barely recognized herself. Wet hair, cracked lipstick, eyes too tired for 28. When she finally started walking home, she passed the familiar skyline, the Space Needle blurred through fog, and whispered under her breath, "You win, Seattle. I give up." At that same hour, miles above her in a glass tower, Landon Hayes watched the same rain slide down his penthouse windows. The view should have been inspiring, city lights flickering against the night, but all he felt was static. To the public, Landon was the golden boy of tech, the youngest CEO to sell his startup for millions, a man with everything money could buy. But to those who knew him, which was almost no one, he was the ghost of his own success. He hadn't spoken to his family in years. He hadn't been seen at a company event since the incident. And lately, the whispers online had grown darker. The Hayes guy? Yeah, I heard he follows that woman everywhere. Some designer, I think. Creepy. He ignored it all, until his assistant forwarded a resume. One name caught his eye. Emily Carter. He remembered her. Barely. A chance meeting at a tech conference, years ago. A laugh that stuck with him for reasons he couldn't explain. Now, her resume was sitting on his screen, tagged as recently terminated. For a moment, something flickered in him, not attraction, not pity, something stranger. He whispered to no one. What if she came back? Down below, Emily reached her small apartment. The heater didn't work, and the silence hurt. She tossed her soaked box of belongings on the couch, peeled off her jacket, and scrolled through job postings. Administrative assistant needed. Confidential employer. Immediate start. Must sign NDA. No company name. Just an address. Weird, she muttered. But her rent was due in a week. She clicked apply. Morning broke gray over Seattle. The rain had paused, leaving behind streets slick and shining like glass. Emily sat at her small kitchen table, laptop open, staring at the job confirmation email she'd almost convinced herself not to answer. From private employer subject, interview, 11 a.m. tomorrow location, Hayes Tower, 47th floor. Her stomach twisted. Hayes Tower. Everyone in Seattle knew the name. It was where the city's most powerful worked and where no one without clearance ever stepped foot. She reread the message, looking for clues. No company name, no contact person. Just an address. Her reflection on the laptop screen looked hesitant but curious. What's the worst that can happen? She muttered, tying her hair into a loose bun. The next morning, the building's lobby looked like another world. Marble floors, towering ceilings, a waterfall wall that shimmered with silver light. Emily felt underdressed in her wrinkled white blouse and worn flats. The receptionist, polite but robotic, handed her a visitor badge. 47th floor. Mr. Hayes is expecting you. Mr. Hayes? Her pulse skipped. The elevator climbed in silence, each floor dinging like a countdown. By the time it opened, her palms were slick with sweat. Landon's office was more like a museum, wide glass walls, minimalist furniture, and the city sprawling beneath them. But what caught her attention was him. He wasn't what she expected. Younger. Dark hair slightly disheveled. No tie. Eyes that carried exhaustion, not arrogance. Emily Carter? He asked quietly, standing from his chair. Yes, Mr. Hayes. He nodded. Please sit. Her resume was already open on the table. He didn't look at it, he looked at her. It made her nervous. Your background in design is impressive, he said after a pause. But that's not why I asked you here. Oh, she asked, confused. I've read about what happened at your last job. So you Googled me? I do my research. She stiffened, uneasy. If this is a tech job, I should mention I'm not exactly, he cut her off. This isn't about tech. Landon turned toward the window, hands in pockets. I've been looking for someone to help manage my personal affairs. Travel coordination, correspondence, appointments, but there's a condition. A condition? If I hire you, will you marry me? The air froze. Emily blinked. Excuse me. Landon turned around, face unreadable. You heard me. It's a proposal. Of sorts. She laughed, dry and shaky. That's not funny. It isn't a joke. Emily stood. Okay, this was a mistake. Sit down, please. His voice was calm, but firm. She hesitated, anger and fear battling in her chest. You don't even know me. I know enough. You're single, no criminal record, strong morals, and he looked at her resume again. You've been publicly humiliated but refused to apologize for telling the truth. I need that kind of person. Her mouth fell open. You investigated me? Yes. For a moment, all she heard was her heartbeat. Why? She demanded. Because I can't trust people anymore, he admitted softly. And I don't expect you to trust me either. But I'm offering security. A job. Protection. A clean start. Emily stepped back toward the door. You're insane. Maybe, he said. But I think you'll consider it. Eventually. She didn't reply. She just left, her heels clicking angrily across the floor, heart pounding. By the time she hit the elevator, her eyes burned, not from tears, but confusion. What kind of man makes an offer like that? Back in her apartment, Emily replayed the encounter over and over. His voice. The steadiness in his eyes. The weird sincerity behind something so absurd. Bills sat unopened on her counter. Rent due in 5 days. Her mom's medical note flashing across her phone screen. Hospital said I need another checkup. Don't worry, sweetheart. She sighed, staring at the phone. The city hummed outside, 1,000 lives moving forward while hers stood still. She opened her laptop again and reread his business card. Just 2 words engraved, Landon Hayes. Tap subscribe to honor every person who's been broken and still chose to believe again. Hit like if you've ever had to start over when life knocked you down. And drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were Emily, walked away, or taken the offer? Seattle didn't shine that week. Gray skies hung low, the city's pulse slower, heavier. Emily Carter moved through it like a ghost. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, glowing with rejection emails. Thank you for applying. Unfortunately, position has been filled. We'll keep your resume on file. She closed the screen, exhaling a trembling sigh. The silence of her apartment pressed in. In the corner, a half-empty instant noodle cup and a stack of unpaid bills looked like a monument to failure. Her mom's text pinged again. Sweetheart, don't worry about me. I'll be fine for my checkup next week. But Emily knew fine meant, can't afford the doctor. She gripped her phone, opened her banking app, and froze at the number. $42.17. Okay, she whispered to herself. Okay. Don't panic. But panic didn't ask for permission, it crawled up her chest anyway. By the 4th sleepless night, Emily caved. She found Landon's card again, the silver one she'd sworn to throw away. She turned it in her hand, over and over, until her reflection blurred in the metallic surface. Her pride told her to burn it. Her reality whispered otherwise. The next morning, she walked into Hayes Tower again, no umbrella this time. Just a trembling heartbeat and a quiet prayer that she wasn't making a mistake. The same receptionist looked up. Ms. Carter, Mr. Hayes said you might come back. Emily froze. He knew I'd come back? The elevator ride felt shorter this time. When the doors opened, Landon was waiting by the window, same black suit, same emotionless face. You took your time, he said softly. You were right, Emily replied, voice shaking. I considered it. And I'll take the job. But not the marriage. Not yet. Something flickered behind his eyes, Amusement? Respect? Pain? Then we have an understanding. She followed him to a massive oak desk where a legal folder sat. A contract. Pages and pages of confidentiality, compensation, and personal boundaries. You'll stay at the mansion. You'll assist with my schedule. You'll have full access to resources, transportation, and staff. And I'll pretend this is normal, she interrupted. He looked at her, almost smiling. Pretend if you need to. Reality bends easily in my world. Her hands trembled as she signed her name. Emily Carter. It looked small beside his signature, Landon Hayes. That night, she moved into the mansion. It wasn't a home, it was a museum. Clean, cold, expensive. She set her small suitcase on the marble floor and whispered, "What did you just agree to?" Landon appeared in the doorway, voice softer now. "You agreed to survive." For the first time, she saw something human in his expression, loneliness, deep and sharp. She didn't respond. She just nodded. If you've ever had to swallow your pride just to keep going, don't let this story pass you by. Hit subscribe, not for me, but for every person who's ever had to say yes when life gave them no choice. If this part of Emily's story hit home, show it some love. Tap subscribe so you don't miss what happens when comfort meets chaos. Hit like if you've ever faced an impossible decision. And tell me in the comments, what's harder, losing pride or losing stability? The mansion didn't feel real at first. It sat high above Lake Washington, surrounded by cedar trees and silence, the kind of silence that reminded Emily of all the things she'd lost. No neighbors, no noise, no city hum. Just the soft echo of her footsteps through long, empty halls. Her room was twice the size of her apartment. She stood there that first morning, suitcase untouched, sunlight crawling across marble floors. She felt like a visitor in a dream she hadn't chosen. From downstairs, she heard Landon's voice, steady low, talking to someone on the phone. She followed the sound. He was in the kitchen, of all places, barefoot, coffee mug in hand. When he looked up, the quiet broke. "You're an early riser," he said. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. "This place feels too big." "You'll get used to it. Or not." "I never did." His honesty caught her off guard. There was no arrogance, no small talk, just a man speaking plainly, almost too plainly. He motioned to the counter. "Coffee." "Sure." They stood there in silence, the sound of the coffee machine filling the gaps between them. The smell reminded Emily of her old office, of mornings that used to feel normal. "Do you always drink it black?" she asked, trying to break the quiet. "I don't like sugar." "Of course you don't." He raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "You think that says something about me?" "Everything says something about you, Mr. Hayes." He didn't respond, just handed her the mug, eyes unreadable. Over the next week, Emily learned the rhythm of Landon's world. He worked from his study most of the day, doors closed, music low, jazz, mostly. She handled his calls, organized his files, and tried not to wonder what exactly he did with his endless wealth. Meals were quiet. Always at the same table, always at 7 p.m. Some nights they talked about art, books, the city. Other nights, they ate in silence, words too heavy to lift. But every time Emily caught him watching her, really watching, she felt something she couldn't name. Not fear. Not comfort. Something in between. She noticed small details, how he kept the curtains half open, as if he couldn't stand total darkness. How he always stood a little too close to the window, like he was waiting for someone who never came. And she noticed how, for all his wealth, he looked lonely. The kind of lonely that even money couldn't cure. One night, she found him asleep in his study, still in his suit, laptop open, jazz still playing softly. She covered him with a blanket. He stirred, half awake. "Emily. Go back to sleep." He mumbled, "You shouldn't care." "Maybe I don't," she whispered, walking away. But she did. If you've ever been close to someone you didn't understand, yet couldn't walk away from, hit subscribe. Not for the story, but for the reminder that connection doesn't always make sense, and maybe it isn't supposed to. The days inside the mansion began to blur. Morning coffee. Quiet meals. The echo of footsteps down long marble halls. But one thing gnawed at Emily: the closed door at the end of the upstairs corridor. Landon had told her once, simply, "Don't go in there." He hadn't said why. She respected that rule for a while. Until the storm came. Thunder rolled over the lake like distant anger. Power flickered, lights dimmed, and curiosity pulled her upstairs. The handle was cold under her fingers. The door, unlocked. Inside was not what she expected. A studio, walls lined with canvases. Every single one painted with the same woman. Brown hair. Green eyes. A smile frozen in memory. Emily stepped closer, tracing the brushstrokes. The woman looked eerily like her. Behind her, Landon's voice cracked through the silence. "You weren't supposed to see that." She turned, startled. "Who is she?" He looked exhausted, soaked from the rain that blew in through the window. Her name was Claire. He walked past her, staring at one of the paintings. "She was my fiancée. She died 5 years ago. Car accident. I built this house for us. I haven't been able to leave it since." Emily's heart sank. The rumor mill had called him a stalker, a recluse, a control freak. But looking at him now, she saw none of that, only grief, fossilized and raw. "You think I hired you because you remind me of her," he said quietly. "Don't you?" she asked. "At first. Maybe. But it isn't that simple. I hired you because you didn't flinch when the world turned on you." Claire always flinched. Rain hammered the glass walls, blurring the city lights. Emily didn't know whether to be angry or sorry. Maybe both. She whispered, "You can't bring her back by trapping someone else in her place." Landon's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. "I know. I'm trying to remember how to live without her, and you're the first person who's made me want to try." The honesty cut through her anger. For the first time, she saw him not as a millionaire or employer, but as a man drowning quietly in guilt. That night, Emily sat in her room, unable to sleep. She looked out at the lake, her reflection merging with the storm-lit glass. Maybe both of them were ghosts here, different stories, same emptiness. If you've ever looked at someone's success and forgotten they might still be grieving, hit subscribe. Sometimes the richest hearts are the ones that ache the most. Would you have stayed to comfort him, or walked away before the pain became yours too? The storm passed overnight, leaving the sky washed clean. Emily woke to sunlight spilling across the floor, a rare warmth she hadn't felt in months. The house smelled faintly of coffee and toast. For once, it felt alive. She followed the sound of soft music into the kitchen. Landon was there, hair messy, sleeves rolled up, clumsy with a frying pan. "You cook," she teased. "Attempt to," he said. "You like eggs. If they're not burned." No promises. The smell of half-burned breakfast filled the air. They laughed, really laughed, for the first time. It startled both of them. Over the next few days, life found small pieces of rhythm. They shopped for groceries together, an ordinary errand that felt oddly intimate. Emily teased him for double-checking every price. He teased her for filling the cart with too many coffee flavors. They argued lightly, joked, even shared playlists on the drive home. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't heavy. At dinner, she told him about her childhood in Tacoma, her mom's stubborn optimism, her love for sketching faces in the rain. He listened, really listened. "You ever think about going back to design?" he asked. "Not after Bright and Company," she said. "Then start your own," he replied. "You're better than them." His tone wasn't flattery, it was conviction. Something inside her shifted. No one had believed in her like that in a long time. Later that evening, she found him in the studio again, staring at the old paintings. Without thinking, she brought him a blank canvas. "If you're going to paint," she said softly, "paint something new." He met her eyes, a question and a thank you mingled in one look. They began sharing small rituals, morning coffee, evening walks by the lake, occasional arguments about music. It wasn't romance, it was rediscovery. The mansion didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt lived in. One night, as they watched the sunset over the water, Landon said quietly, "You make this place less silent." Emily smiled. "You make it less impossible." If you've ever had one person remind you what normal feels like again, hit subscribe. Because sometimes healing isn't dramatic, it's just someone staying. If this softer side of the story made you breathe easier, show it some love. Tap like for every quiet moment that healed you. Hit subscribe to stay with Emily as peace slowly meets the past. And share in the comments, what's your version of a taste of normal after chaos? Do you think simple moments can heal deeper wounds than grand gestures ever could? The peace didn't last. It never does. For 2 weeks, the mansion stayed warm, music in the mornings, laughter in the kitchen, sunlight on the lake. Then, one small thing cracked it all open. Emily was filing Landon's correspondence when she found an unmarked envelope on his desk. Inside, an invoice from a private investigator. Her name on it. Every detail, her address, her mother's hospital bills, even the date she was fired. Her hands shook. He hadn't just researched her, he'd tracked her. The warmth of the past days evaporated, replaced by something cold and sharp. When Landon came in, she was waiting. The papers lay spread across the desk like evidence. You investigated me? Emily, don't. Just answer. Yes. Silence, heavy enough to crush air. Why? She demanded. Because I needed to know you weren't like the others. So you bought my life like a background check? He took a step forward, guilt flickering across his face. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did. Her voice cracked. All this time I thought you were starting to trust me. He tried again, softer. I was trying to protect myself. You mean control me? Her words hit him harder than she expected. His shoulders dropped, his expression folded inward. I don't know how to do this, Emily. I don't know how to let people in without breaking something. She swallowed hard. Then maybe you shouldn't hire people to pretend they care. She grabbed her coat, ignoring the rain outside. Landon called her name once, but she didn't look back. The front doors slammed, echoing through the glass halls like thunder. Landon stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the mug she'd left behind. He wanted to chase her, explain, promise, but all the words he'd ever used to fix things had always come too late. He went to the studio. Every painting of Claire stared at him accusingly. He pulled down one canvas after another until the floor was littered with fragments of his past. Meanwhile, Emily sat in her car by the lake, the same rain blurring her reflection. She wasn't angry anymore, just tired. She whispered, "Why does every man I trust turn into a ghost?" If you've ever trusted someone and found out they've been watching instead of seeing you, hit subscribe. Not to cheer this pain, but to remember, honesty costs less than secrets. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. Seattle turned gray again, the sky a curtain of apology that neither of them could read. She stayed at a cheap motel near the waterfront. No job. No plan. Just silence. Her phone buzzed every few hours, unknown number. She never answered. But every time it rang, part of her wanted to. Anger said, "Don't." Loneliness whispered, "Maybe just once." On the 4th night, she opened a message. From Landon Hayes. You were right. I don't know how to love without controlling it. If you'll hear me out, meet me at the pier tomorrow at 6. She stared at the screen. Her pulse quickened. Forgiveness didn't come easy, but she was tired of carrying anger. By sunrise, she found herself walking toward the water anyway. He waited in the cold, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. When Emily appeared through the fog, he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a lifetime. You came, he said quietly. You didn't give me much choice, she answered. You always have one, he said. That's what I forgot. He took a step closer, then stopped himself. I hired people, built walls, investigated strangers, all to avoid being left again. But you leaving showed me something. Control isn't safety. It's just another kind of cage. Emily looked out at the water. You can't undo what you did. I know. But I can do better, if you'll let me prove it. She turned to him. Then tell me, why me? Really? He swallowed hard. Because you saw through me when I couldn't even see myself. And because you didn't stay for the money, you stayed until I gave you a reason to leave. Tears slipped down her cheek before she could stop them. The honesty cut through everything else. She whispered, I don't know if I can trust you again. Then don't, he said softly. Just let me try to earn it. For a moment, they stood in silence, the ocean wind pushing at their coats. Emily finally nodded, just once. Then we start over. No contracts. No conditions. He nodded back. No walls. Spring settled softly over Seattle. For the first time in a long while, Emily didn't flinch at the rain. She walked through Pike Place with a sketchbook under her arm, a calm confidence replacing the nervous energy that used to follow her everywhere. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She had taken a position with a small design nonprofit that renovated city spaces into art installations. The pay wasn't glamorous, but each mural, each clean wall of color, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Most mornings she stopped by the same coffee cart near the pier. The barista knew her order now: vanilla latte, extra foam, 2 sugars. It was ordinary. And that ordinary felt like freedom. One gray afternoon she spotted a familiar silhouette near the waterfront. Landon Hayes, dressed casually, no bodyguards, no rush. He was talking with an older couple about donating computers to a community school. When he saw her, he smiled, just a simple, genuine smile. "You look happier," he said. "I am," she replied. Still sketching in the rain. Old habits. They walked along the pier, quiet except for the gulls and the water below. "I never thanked you," he said after a while. "For what?" "For walking away when I needed someone to." She nodded, understanding. "And thank you for not asking me to stay." He laughed softly. "So we're even." Even. They stood for a moment, two people who had finally learned that love isn't possession, it's respect. Then Emily tucked her sketchbook under her arm and said, "Take care of yourself, Landon." "You too, Emily. Don't stop building beautiful things." She turned toward the city, the drizzle beginning again. This time, she didn't hide from it. She just smiled and kept walking. Thank you for staying with this story to the very end. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you'll not miss out on the next video.